Good afternoon, everybody. This is a live extreme weather briefing as we just have a couple of bubblers out here, little showers. There have been a couple of lightning strikes as well up into northeastern Alabama, but these are actually moving into stable air right now. Looking at the surface map, you can certainly tell that temperatures drop off dramatically across northeastern Alabama. Down here, though, in the Birmingham area, central Alabama, temperatures rising into the upper 70s. There's not a ton of convergence, at the surface, though, that would help to sustain some of these updrafts. I was trying to look at the surface map here to see if there are any of these sustained confluent areas at the surface that could help to sustain an updraft. Looking at the echo tops, just a couple of mild echo tops up here, maybe 20,000 feet. That's not really something that's maturing and rising rapidly up through the troposphere. And I know that the Alabama game just started right now, so I'm going to let you know that you do have plenty of time and you probably won't even need to take shelter from these things. But they are going up, shaped like a supercell, and that's because the wind shear and the thermodynamics are relatively favorable for rotating storms if they are able to develop. But the key is that you need sustained surface convergence. And that one is starting to mature just a little bit off to the southwest of Birmingham, southeast of Tuscaloosa there. You can see that little bit of a hook-like appendage. So really, I'm just watching the echo tops of these bubblers. And once they start to reach up above about 20 to 30,000 feet, once I start to see these greens and especially the yellow, that means that it's definitely time to get a move on. These ones up here are rising up along I-59 just to the south of Fort Payne. But based on the surface map, it does look like these are in relatively stable air. And I'm now going to pull up the surface map here for you. And I'd just like to apologize, too, for earlier this morning getting all worked up about the suits that sometimes will send some enemy fire my way when I do an outlook or something, or do a live briefing on my social media pages, or if I'm thinking there could be an outbreak a couple of days out, now just 24 to 36 hours out. And really what I mean by that definition are just the powers that be, the people that are in charge of these big time networks. And, you know, a lot of times it does seem like they make a lot of the calls, but that wasn't like me. Definitely woke up a little bit in a bad mood, doing better now as I'm monitoring these bubblers across central Alabama. Everybody means well, you know, but don't worry about me. I'm not the enemy. I'm just a storm chaser. Got a pretty poor credit score. Just kind of a middle-aged guy. I don't mean any harm to anybody, but I do have a big-time passion for storm chasing and breaking down these severe weather events, forecasting them, breaking down the radar as well, trying to figure out which ones are going to create a big-time tornado outbreak. Hopefully I don't get in anybody's way, but I do love to storm chase, so that's what I'm going to do, is storm chase and break down these forecasts. I like to inform people in the path of these events by increasing awareness for the severe weather happening. I strongly believe that the first step toward keeping you and your family safe when severe weather strikes is being aware of the severe weather, and not just 15 minutes beforehand, but even in the days leading up. It's possible to mentally prepare for severe weather and run those simulations of taking shelter and executing your severe weather safety plan in your head. Definitely is very important. And but anyway, I usually don't get into the drama side of it too much. I just like to focus on the science, analyze these storms as they're developing. This one just to the west-southwest of West Blockton. But it does hurt my feelings every now and then. I work pretty hard as well at making forecasts, just like everybody else does. And scrapping, you know, social media is kind of my only job really at this point. I also do have, thank you to Flex Seal, who is powering a lot of our science mission. Thanks to the Facebook supporters on here for making it possible to keep storm chasing and for delivering these live weather briefings. But I'm watching these renegades that are trying to bubble here just to the south of Birmingham. It looks like there's a little bit of a boundary here just to the south of this I-20 corridor. And that's really what you're going to need, is a boundary. There is a special weather statement up by the storm just to the south of Fort Payne. But I do believe that that one is running into some stable air. It's right along that boundary right now up there. And it is 64 degrees up in that area, 69 in Gadsden. So, I mean, it is stable up in northeastern Alabama. And let me see if I can bring in the surface map. It is an interesting time these days with social media, and it's making it possible for many people to have a voice, and that includes anybody from the suits that are in charge to the local meteorologist to the national meteorologist down to the National Weather Service as well out here. But it's a unique time because a lot of people are able to broadcast these severe weather outlooks and broadcast warnings. And I think overall it's definitely a good thing because overall it's increasing awareness for the people in the path of these storms. It's giving people more reliable sources for severe weather and tornado warnings. But it's also making it possible for some accounts to maybe speak from inexperience or maybe a lack of knowledge from forecasting. But it's not me in my position to really talk down on anyone. I just try to encourage everybody to follow their passion, to follow their interest in meteorology, realizing that the younger generations are the future of meteorology and storm chasing. And I also, when I first got into storm chasing, the older crowds weren't as welcoming for this hobby, and that includes meteorology in general, not just storm chasing. So I'm trying to do the opposite, not be a gatekeeper, but show people the path if they want to get into storm chasing or meteorology or warning people in the public. But that's about all I can do. But looking at the surface map, see how these temperatures rising up into the 80s to the south of Birmingham. Northeastern Alabama, though, temperatures drop into the 60s, middle to upper 60s up there over the northeastern part of the state. Birmingham up into 76. Look at those dew points, too, upper 60s to around 70. The HRRR shows some dry air here across the Mid-South. Definitely is underdoing the dew points compared to some of the other short-range forecast models. And it looks to me like the moisture is already in place here. Tuscaloosa has a relatively weaker wind, a little bit of a calm wind down here over the southwestern part of the state. I am wondering if there is just a little bit of confluence down there. But really what I'm seeing is just in general some relatively weak south-southwesterly winds there across the state of Alabama. Decent cape. You can see that storm up south of Fort Payne running into that stable air. That stable air is in blue there, according to the RAP analysis across northeastern Alabama. That blue is negative cape or convective inhibition, and it's forming right along that boundary. That's why it's growing up relatively high according to its echotops, because as it's running into this stable air, it's actually gaining a little bit of convergence. These southwesterly winds are running in to more calm winds here. With that stable air across northeastern Alabama, basically like a log jam. So those towers can continue to run into each other, and they're able to consolidate and grow much higher into the atmosphere and take advantage of those steeper lapse rates. But you can also see this area, this blob of about 2,000 to 2,500 surface base cape. Southerly winds, southwesterly winds become more southerly within that area of cape as well. Looking at the storm relative helicity, about 100 to 200 0 to 1 kilometer shear. This area of 200 plus is inflated because of that stable air up there and relatively weak surface winds, but still 100 to 150 0 to 1 kilometer shear, more than sufficient to have a tornado threat if they do develop, and that shear increases as you go toward evening. The RAP model tries to bubble some of those renegades up very close to the Birmingham area in the next 2 hours. But the HRRR might be just a little bit bullish in that. But really, if storms do develop, they will have a chance of producing tornadoes. This is an awesome website, autumnsky.us. Let's take a look at the real-time photographs in the Birmingham area. And there's the photograph. It definitely has some 0 to 1 kilometer shear, about 140 here in the Birmingham area. There is your photograph. This is looking down at the wind shear profile. Your surface wind relatively weak at about 5 knots out of the due south. Your 1 kilometer wind increases to about 30 knots out of the due southwest. Your mid and upper level winds, look at the directional shear, even with this day before the day, switching over to due westerly at about 4, 5, and 6 kilometers. So your storm motion is going to be largely due east and relatively slow at 20 knots. Your right mover might even be a little bit south of due east, and that's going to allow for quite a bit of storm relative helicity. That's proportional to the area enclosed by this photograph curve and your storm motion vector. The proportional area to that is equal to your 0 to 1 kilometer shear, about 140 0 to 1 kilometer shear. Your 0 to 3 ramps up above 250, a little bit more 0 to 3 kilometer shear. And my friend Matt just got back from seeing that damage up in Louisville, and he said, well, that was absolutely insane. Worse than any tornado damage I've ever seen in person. Entire neighborhood in Louisville gone. And also back towards Superior. So very sad to see that fast-moving wildfire about 20 minutes to the northeast of my apartment there as well. And your heart goes out to the people that lost their homes. Over 580 homes that have been destroyed. And Jen Walton, who's in charge of Girls Who Chase, I saw is posting a way to help and donate if you do want to get involved. I also saw a campaign of people that are making as many sifters as they can as well. And we're going to be posting a list of ways to help out there with that destructive fire, high plains fire, fueled by a downslope windstorm. And we do have some new radar data. Looks like that 1 kilometer wind obviously still out of the southwest, still relatively consistent there. But your 0 to 1 kilometer shear has even notched up a little bit. So these are starting to increase. Your wind shear is favorable. But keep in mind, you do need a storm in this environment to realize that tornado threat. And there is a decent chance that bubblers are just not going to be able to mature out here. And watching this one to the west of West Blockton right now. And let's take a look at the echo tops. And those echo tops are starting to get a little bit higher, aren't they? Starting to see some greens there to the west. I'm awaiting up here, south of Hoover, and I'll be able to drop south easily and get on this storm, maybe even southwest and get on it. But the echo tops are definitely starting to mature just southeast of Tuscaloosa. And it does have that classic bean shape as well. And in fact, any of these towers that are going up kind of have that classic bean shape. That means that they're going up, rotating. So looking at some of these beans, you can definitely see this one, southeast of Tuscaloosa. The HRRR has done a remarkable job at showing the general location on where these are going to mature. And interestingly, the HRRR has drier dew points by about 2, 3, 4 degrees in some of the other models during the day tomorrow. Storm Prediction Center has a large enhanced risk, potential upgrade to a moderate risk. Saw a crazy comment of someone saying that the Storm Prediction Center is over their heads and that they shouldn't go as high as an enhanced risk due to the southwesterly surface winds. But one thing to realize with that is that with these central and eastern U.S. setups, the low-level wind shear profiles are dominated by speed shear, not as much directional shear. Yeah, you get a little bit of directional shear in the low levels, but for the most part, you have those basically 10 to 15 knot surface winds and a low-level jet of about 50 to 70 knots above it. You're going to get a 30 to 40 knot shear vector even without any directional shear. But the directional shear from 850 from about 1 kilometer up to the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere is certainly critical, because then you can evacuate that rain and the hail from the updraft, take it downstream, potentially curve a little bit more to the right. Definitely does look pretty dangerous in terms of the photographs, and that does depend on if there is going to be renegade storm potential. It's possible there could be a fast-moving line of QLCS circulations, which are also capable of being very dangerous tornadoes as it moves through. I think that a tornado outbreak is inevitable across a large part of the Mid-South, and a tornado outbreak is defined as an event with greater than 6 tornadoes over a small area. A large outbreak I would classify as one with dozens of tornadoes across a large area. And anytime you get a low-level jet that encompasses multiple states, potentially over a dozen states, then you have a very large area of surface space instability and relatively favorable low-level wind shear, where a storm motion, a favorable storm motion to generate tornadoes can be achieved over a relatively large area. These higher amplitude systems, too, will usually lead to more renegade potential, more favorable low-level shear for those prefrontal confluence lines as well. And in the winter, a lot of times models don't really handle the surface temperatures very well. I mean, it's pushing 80 degrees outside right now. And that, is insane for this time of year, for New Year's Eve. This one's starting to rotate down to the southwest of Belchers. Definitely is going up spinning. Does have a mesocyclone on it. So I'm going to keep an eye on this. And if that echo top continues to increase, then it is time for me to activate storm chase mode. Might even be time now. Probably 25,000 feet, but trending up. And it looks like it's even starting to experience some of those relatively west to east mid and upper level flow. See how those higher tops are starting to peel off to the right? So I do think that this is going to continue to mature and could become a storm before it arrives here just to the south of Birmingham. We had that other tornado just southeast of Calera that ended up crossing the county line just east of I-65. I was looking for that damage on I-65 southeast of Calera. Maybe saw a couple trees down, but it looked like that was old damage from that previous tornado. And I didn't really see much in the way of fresh damage there right along I-65, but it did grow into a bigger tornado out near the county line to the east, southeast of Calera. And, oh, there it is. Look at that bubbler of a top trying to go up. If they are rooted, they're not going to be moving too terribly fast. So, but you could tell that that is awfully tilted, that reflectivity pattern there near West Blockton, further west. And it looks like it's kind of shifted into a couple different cells. Mother Nature always likes to exist in pairs like this, unless you're a storm chaser. And it looks like you have three different updrafts. And if these are able to consolidate, or maybe if another updraft is able to form to the south of it and increase its overall mass, then this easily could mature into a supercell. You can see the hook-like appendage out here to the west of Belchers as well. But just a pair of these storms. This one has a higher top, but this one's further back, so we'll just have to see which one of these are going to dominate. But they definitely are going up rotating, that's for sure. 7-0 Alabama. I placed a bet on Alabama and the over. I was talking to some Alabama fans last night. I know OU has 11 unclaimed national titles and 7 national titles, and we were talking, I guess Alabama's got like 18 national titles. So there's really no discussion on, you know, what probably the best college football program is. Of course, it's Alabama, but I love this area. Chased the super outbreak into Tuscaloosa. I went to a lot of the old Alabama OU games when Mike Shula was the coach there, and Alabama fans are always really gracious. Go to an LSU game, though, on the other hand. So look at that core there, just to the northwest of Belchers, north of Johnstown. It looks like this one died and became a turkey neck, and then this one's starting to reinvigorate. It has a lot higher reflectivity at the low levels, but we'll just have to keep an eye on it. It definitely is a bubbler, and I do think that it has greater potential to develop than any of these. There is one just to the west of me as well along 459 that's trying to go up. But of course, this one is moving into the stable air further north. So that's a breakdown of the environment here. No reason to panic. Keep watching the game. Everybody here, you're experts with severe weather. And, you know, to watch radar, you have many sources to look for radar. Incredibly skilled local meteorologists here on TV that are breaking down these threats as they're happening as well. Weather radios are a great way to stay tuned. But when I'm out there storm chasing, I'm not the best way to stay tuned to real-time tornado warning information because I'm driving and I'm storm chasing. And while I am able to keep everybody updated as well as I can on the warnings, you're better off staying tuned to a local meteorologist that's able to broadcast 24/7. Someone on YouTube that's a reputable source as well. A meteorologist is a good one to watch. Someone that has access to dependable internet, storms, because when I'm storm chasing, I just can't keep track of every single target area that's out there. I do try, though, very hard, just in case there are people that are still staying tuned to mine for nowcasting purposes and for breaking down those tornado warnings and severe weather watches and warnings. But I am watching this one. I think I am better at just doing the forecasting like this and then the actual storm chasing. And I can break down radar and everything, but I want to be on the ground looking at the storm. Sometimes I feel like other meteorologists might be better served by breaking down radar. But I definitely looked at a lot of these outbreaks as they play out on radar and forecast models, but there's a lot of people that know what they're doing out here. Also watching this one to the southwest of Columbiana that has a chance, and I'm based right in the middle of these three. I can always go off to the east toward Harpersville, Childersburg, but that storm does have that classic sickle shape to the reflectivity pattern. They definitely are going up, rotating, but they are struggling. They're not just taking off, which is a good sign. But I am waiting here just to see what they do, because if any of these do mature, Storm Prediction Center does not plan a watch of any kind for this because of how isolated the severe weather threat is going to be. But it only takes one storm, and especially in an environment like this, if you do get a mature rotating storm, the low-level wind shear is certainly favorable for severe weather. Here's the updated hodograph out of Birmingham. We're just watching this hodograph take shape. 0 to 1 kilometer shear has notched up a little bit to 219. And it looks like your 0 to 500 meter shear is about 150. So that's some pretty big wind shear, in excess of 200 now here in the Birmingham area. So if any of those storms do mature, they are going to have the potential to produce tornadoes. So I'm going to keep breaking these down here live until I have to storm chase. Stay tuned to that Alabama game, but keep an eye on those storms to the southwest of Birmingham and to the south of Tuscaloosa. Dominate the storm.